Am I live? Can you hear me now? Now, does that mean I'm trying to use Verizon or Sprint? These commercials, they confuse me. Is it any better? Sound. Yay! All right. Vina Demon Slayer. You get thumbs up for being the first person to let me know I have sound. Hooray! Okay. I'm being told sound is low. Is that just the user, or can everybody else hear me? I'm terrified to touch settings now because I touched settings to try to fix the sound before, and I got the Bill Gates screen of death. Okay, very low audio. Let me see if I can fix that without blue screening. Testing the audio again. Is that any better? Testing sound again. 1, 2, 3. Is that better? Okay, better. Well, folks, be honest with you, I don't know how to up it anymore in this software, and I don't dare go try to find other settings. Uh, I hope that the sound is going to be well enough for you to get through the day. So let me try starting this over again. I apologize that when I first started, everybody was wondering what was going on. And what I was trying to do was have the room open so that everybody could start to join and settle in and find the best seat in the room. And then once my time started, I wanted to be able to hit the unmute button and take down the splash screen, and here I would be for you. Well, the splash screen went down, but the audio didn't come on my side. I'm sitting here watching the little volume bar tick along like you could hear me, but apparently it wasn't working very well. So there we are. All right, folks. So I also wanted to say I've got my wife Jennifer manning over there, the better half of J and J Acres, as well as my friend friends Tommy and Patty down at Alderman Farms and uh, Deep South Homestead. I gave you guys a little bit of. Well, let me see. Maybe if I move the microphone a little closer. Let's see. All right, everybody's still complaining about sound, so I am going to risk the world and go into my recording devices here and see if I can't up it any further. Let's see. That says I can put it up a little bit more. Okay, I can't make the sound go up any longer. I've upped it to the max in 3 different places, so you're just gonna have to forgive me. We've got to move forward with the show. All right, so great. All right, everybody's saying it's wonderful now, so I'm glad. That sounds like it's working. All right, we've got 91 eager beavers sitting around waiting to see a show here. So, let me tell you the general rules of the game. If you've got a question that you'd like me to answer, whether that's something about your property, something that you've seen happen on our property in the past that you'd like a follow up on, or any questions about where things might be going in the future, then put them in the chat box in all capital letters. This is the one time where it is acceptable to yell on the internet with all caps. That way my moderators can make sure that I can see your comments and your questions and get an answer out to you in a timely manner. So do that for me, please. So to get things started tonight, I thought that I'd get the discussion started with a bit of a picture show. I went around the property earlier today and took a few pictures and want to share those with you. So presuming I can get this part right, this live stuff. I don't know how people do this out in broadcast media. It's nerve-wracking. All right, let me see. Supposedly, if I click this button right, that's not going to work because after the reboot, I forgot to set that up. This is terrible. Folks, I hope this is not how this is going to be every time. Honestly. Okay, let's see. I was smart enough to put these pictures in their own little folder. Let's see here. Let's see here. All right, now let me add in a source here so I can show you these pictures. This really should be much easier than this. I don't know if it's just the software that I'm trying to use, this freebie OBS stuff. If I weren't such a cheapskate, maybe things would be better. All right, let's see here. Okay, we are almost there. We're about cooking with gas. All right, so that's what I want to show you. Let me move it down there. Okay, so now can you hear me again? Can you hear me again? Can you hear me now? Folks, I am so incredibly sorry for how poorly this is going. I am so incredibly sorry. I don't know. I clicked a little button that was supposed to hide my video, and apparently it hid my audio as well. This is what happens when you try too hard. You try too hard and do fancy stuff and things don't work out. So let me try this. Okay. Alright, so now the bees. You should be looking at the bees. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me even though you're looking at the bees? Okay, everybody's saying they can. Alright, so I wanted to start this off by showing you a few pictures of things around the property, things you either haven't seen or we just haven't talked about in a long time. So these are the bees. And the foremost hive that you can see, the one on the far right, is the hive that you've seen since the very beginning. That is the hive we have always had. We have never had to do anything with them. We've never had to add more bees. We've never had to requeen or anything like that. That hive trucks along and does its job. However, we have had a problem, or we did have a problem earlier this spring where that colony threw out about 5 swarms that we know about. 5 swarms we actually saw and counted. Some of those were all of a sudden driving up and there's a cloud of bees and all of a sudden it flies away. Sometimes it was being able to see the ball of bees up on a nearby tree and just couldn't harvest it in time and they flew away. But that thing threw out like 5 swarms. Now, that said, we got frustrated with them and turned around and split that hive into the hive that you can see behind it. And it's not a very strong hive, but they do have a queen, they are laying, they are collecting honey. Everything else you can see on that bench is either just an empty box that didn't have anywhere else to go, or at the very, very end is a nuke that is just the best place to store it. So that's kind of what's going on with the bees. Now, y'all see those little frogs there? There's actually 3 of them. And I want to brag on my wife Jennifer for just a minute. For a while there, she was going to a ceramic studio out in town, and she made these well, they have cast like molds that you use to cast the actual form with. And she found these 3 frogs that are like the hear no, see no, speak no evil, and she did them up so I would have some kind of art out in the garden. And so I think she did a fantastic job. And now they sit out there and watch the bees all day. So let's see if we can't move along to the next picture. I did a video a couple weeks ago about zinnia, and I just have to share these with you. Are these not the most insanely vibrant flowers you've ever seen? This is a Carousel Zinnia. I bought it from Baker Creek, rareseeds.com. And here is kind of a big mess of them in the middle of the garden. So they're just amazing. I've got other zinnias around the property, but these Carousel Zinnias, I mean, let's just go back to that close-up. That's crazy. I just love how vibrant that is. All right, now here, earlier today, if you were watching over at Alderman Farms, you may have seen I asked Tommy and Patty about this okra. A couple years ago, the aldermans and myself happened to be at the same conference, if you will, called the Mississippi Food Summit. And Patty, bless her heart, she came up to me with a bag and had a couple different pods of seeds for this okra. And now I was out there in the garden doing this myself. This okra actually self-seeded. I did not plant it this year. It came up all on its own. Must have been in a pod that got left out there, and it broke down and seeded itself. This is out in that same field where I collected all that squash a couple weeks ago. And Patty tells me that this is called cow horn okra. Now, I personally, after having tried several different varieties of okra, have learned that I like my okra to stay small. I like the smaller okras. Now, that said, there's nothing wrong with this okra. But when I dice it up and when I cook it, I like it to cook down a little bit more than this one does. But if you like to have as much meat out of your okra as you possibly can, let me tell you, son, this cow horn okra is as long as my entire forearm, all the way to the tips of my fingers. So that's pretty crazy okra. Now, I wanted to share a bad thing with you too. I didn't want to just come in here putting flowers in your nose and making you think everything was sweet smelling around here. This is what is happening at our grape arbor right now. Many of you have seen that project where a couple years ago, in an effort to try to provide some shade to the west side of our house, we put up a grape arbor. And over the course of 2 years, the grapevines grew up, and they are doing exactly that, providing tons of shade. But in the meantime, they're also not getting harvested. And because of that, we have all these wasted muscadines that are just raining down on our heads from up above. So something we need to be looking at how to do is I have to train the other members of the family how to recognize when a muscadine grape is ripe, so I can get a little help. So it doesn't just fall on me to either have or have not the time to get out there and put up a ladder to harvest these muscadines, because these are the ones that are falling from up above. These are the ones that are about 8-9 foot over your head. So on the plus side, the grape trellis is working and is providing shade and is producing food. On the negative side, it's currently going to waste unless you're a wasp. If you look right there, that's actually a wasp eating on that grape. Okay, so here's something else I'm pretty excited about. This is amaranth, specifically golden giant amaranth, also another variety I picked up over at Rare Seeds. And I got it because I wanted to try to grow grains, and this is a grain you're supposed to be able to grow fairly easily, that you can grow in a small area and produce enough grain to actually talk about it. However, here's something interesting. This is the first time I've tried growing it. And if you live in the South, and be honest with you, I don't know how far north it really goes, but you're going to be familiar with pokeweed or poke salad. And when this row first came up, it was actually interplanted. I had the amaranth and some sorghum. Now the sorghum was kind of standing out. I could tell the different leaves, and I knew that it must be the sorghum, even though that was the first time I had ever grown it. Well, these golden giant amaranths, when they first came out, the stalks are just that woody looking stalk that have just enough discoloration in them with these big leaves that make you think I got a poke plant coming up. And I must have chopped down about 6 of these poor things, thinking that they were poke plant that I didn't want growing in my garden. So these are the last 2 survivors. I think they're just about ready to to harvest for seed, and then we'll use all that seed to try again next season. So that's something to look forward to. Now this here is an interesting little squash. This is silver edge squash. This is another one I picked up. I think I want to say I picked this one up at Baker Creek. I'd almost guarantee it because it's kind of a strange thing. But this produces a small pumpkin-looking squash that is the color it's supposed to be, white with the green accents. And the usefulness of this squash is the seeds. It produces an extremely out of proportion sized seed that has a silver edge going around it. My wife loves pumpkin seeds, and so this was specifically grown to try to get us some good roasting pumpkin seeds. And so maybe we'll be doing a harvest video on this and showing you how simple it is to roast up some pumpkin seeds. This is that sorghum I was telling you about. Boy, how embarrassing is that? So this is supposed to be about 10 times as much seed. This is supposed to be a popping type of sorghum. I cannot pronounce it. I'll embarrass myself even trying. It is Tarahumara. So again, it's Tarahumara, popping sorghum. So clearly I bought this with the hopes and expectations of having some pop sorghum for the kids and for us. And, well, we might pop a few seeds just to say we did, but it didn't go well. Alright, so lastly, I think this is the last set of pictures here, and we'll jump into some questions. This is a volunteer cucumber. So if you've seen the videos in the past where the little duck pond is, going downhill from that, you see that that hose that's going through there. That's actually a siphoning off hose, so we could clean out that pond. So that goes down the property a ways. Well, that is a volunteer. I'm pretty sure it's just a simple slicing cucumber of some variety. And we have got about 5 different plants growing up and down the hill there. So, just a interesting little thing. Volunteer plants, you gotta love them. Alright, so that's the picture show I wanted to share. Alright, so let me see if I can't find some questions to answer. Let's see. If you've asked a question, chances are that entire time I was not watching the feed, so chances are I missed it. You might want to go ahead and we'll say questions and answers open now. So ask your question, and we'll start moving along with things. Let's see. You know, Jennifer's asking me to talk about wax moths. So let me go back here and put a visual up. Let me see. Alright, so if you see that second box in on the left, the hive body, the non-painted box, and then the box behind it, the non-painted box. Those were purchased with frames that had wax from another beekeeper. and we had our first hive, the one that's up front, and the second hive, which was holding a colony of Russian bees that we were given. It was a swarm off of another beekeeper's hive, but it was a very small swarm, and they did a terrible job of adapting to this new box, and the wax moths moved in, and we had to get rid of everything inside of that box. All the foundation was worthless. We just got new. The boxes were fine, but we had to get new frames and new foundations. But the wax moth was so bad, the bees died out. There was just no help for them. It had gone terrible. Let's see. Where am I at? We are in Tomb Suba, Mississippi. If you're really interested, go to janjacres.net, and over there you can find all of our contact information. So, have fun. Let's see. Somebody asked what's in the bag behind me. Well, fact of the matter is, despite us being a homestead, and I don't know how else to say this, gun channels on YouTube seem to be a dime a dozen. And I don't consider myself to be a gun guy. I can't sit here and talk to you about the feet per second and number of grains of powder or weight of bullet and whatever else, and what it was coated with and why it is or isn't hollow and every other kind of nonsense. I just know I have applications that I wish to have guns for. So what's in the case behind me? There's guns. Plain and simple. Let's see. Oh, the Cajun homesteader mentioned, have you tried freezing the foundations afterwards? So that's actually a really good comment. If you have a problem with wax moths or really any kind of pest, and you want to try to save the foundations, because we're using plastic foundations. I think that's probably clear with me saying reusing the foundations. What you can do is freeze them, put them in the deep freezer, and let them sit there 24 hours and try to kill off any eggs that are in there. And then you can give that frame back to the bees, let them clean out all the residue, rebuild the comb, and go from there. Yes, we did try doing that. Really, the problem was that the frames that we had were just of ill repair. It made more sense to me to go and spend $3 on a new frame for each frame I needed than to deal with the frames that I had. I'm trying to be fair to the person I bought it from, but I wish I had bought new. I wish I hadn't bought used. Okay, let's see here. Any other questions out there? Plastic foundation. I'm trying to see. Nina, that's a pretty common thing. People like to say my bees don't like plastic, or some people say my bees don't like the wires, or my bees don't like the, I guess it's easy to sit there and say that, my chicken doesn't like this kind of feed, but my chicken will eat this other kind of feed, and to try to make similar comparisons. But I've never had a problem with the plastic foundations. I hadn't had any problems with that. Okay, so Joseph is asking, how many pigs do we have right now? Well, here we go. We have 3. We have 3 pigs on the farm, and what we are waiting for is October. October deer season opens, and that means that the large deer processing plant that is about 2 miles down the road from me, that has a very nice and clean setup, will hopefully process my hogs for me. Tommy Alderman over there at Alderman Farms has some great videos out there, and he encouraged me to go look at them, and I did, on how I could process my own pigs, and I would rather go ahead and just take them down there, then figure out all of that. I just, you know, when it comes to homesteading, or probably anything really, there's always a reason somebody will pay for something rather than do it for themselves. And I think the majority of homesteaders are the I'm going to try to do it 100% by myself, and go from there. And I've processed plenty of chickens, plenty of ducks, plenty of rabbits, a couple coons, and things like that. Even a possum one time. But I have no desire to fool around with a 200 some pound hog and screw it all up, and have spent, these are American guinea hogs, so they've been around for a year and a half trying to grow them out, and the last thing I want to do is screw it up on my first time ever trying to butcher a hog. I'd rather pay somebody and get some meat out of what I put into it, and then move forward from there. So I think that's where you see, why people pay for things. That's where my line in the sand is on do it myself or pay for it. I hope to be out in the woods this fall and winter and shoot a few deer, and I'll worry about skinning and gutting and cleaning and packing away their meat. Let somebody else deal with the pigs. I'm tired of the pigs. Let's see. Somebody even said, don't butcher your own. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people out there that do it. I'm not against somebody butchering their own, but I think somebody else could do it a lot better than I can. Somebody else mentioned here, let me see. Claudia mentioned, do you process your other animals yourself? Yes, we do. I don't like killing animals. I have no problem eating them. I'm not a huge fan of the whole processing part of it, but generally speaking, the way things would work is Jennifer will dispatch the animal, bring it to me, and then I take it over from there, with the exception being the ducks. It took a while for Jennifer to learn just right where to cut the duck so it would bleed without just fully lopping its head off. And so what I'm talking about is putting the duck in a kill cone and holding it out, slicing its neck, and then letting it bleed so that we could then process it from there. And we used a real large crawfish pot as a scalder. And then we have one of those easy plucker, commercially bought chicken pluckers that we would use to process the ducks. And I think that there's some learning that goes in with that, certainly on the scalding side, but also in knowing when they come in feather. So some pretty smart people who've done that a lot longer than I have learned that you can time when ducks put out new pin feathers, and if you time it just right, the story goes that you can get a duck pretty much entirely clean, scalding it and putting it through a plucker, and still have the skin intact. Before we had the plucker, we would skin the ducks, which was a much easier way of dealing with things. You make a couple incisions, it gets you down into the breast meat. You make a couple other incisions, gets you into the thigh. You take out the breast fillets, you take off the thighs, and you've got the majority of the meat, and you can put it away. Having the entire duck is nice. I think having the extra fat does add some flavor into the meat, and I don't know what else to say about that, but we have had ducks that came out as bald as a baby's butt, and then we had others that just seemed like pin feathers were galore, and you're trying to figure out frustratingly why one was different from the very next one. And I think it has to do with that magic of knowing when the pin feathers are coming out so that you can process them at the right time. And that level of maintenance, or there's a better word for that, but that level of keeping track of, okay, that bird is 18 weeks old and that bird is 20 weeks old, and having to mark them and track them was not a system we had set up at the time. So we went into it blind, and we paid a little bit for that. Let's see. Trying to keep up with your comments here. Patty wants to know what okra variety you prefer. Oh, Patty. I wish I had been prepared for that comment. What okra variety did I put in the ground this year? I think this year I just put in the simple crimson spineless, which still gets too big for my liking. But if I get out there quick enough, I can harvest it in time, where it seems like the cow horn is on steroids, and if you blink, it goes from being a flower to 3 foot long, and you wonder what happened. I don't have a favorite yet, but I think the answer to the question of what am I growing right now would be Clemson Spineless, but I would have to go back and check to see if that's 100% true. I had someone give me some seeds once for, I think there was one called a Big Texas or something. I'm not really good with the memory side of this thing, but supposedly, get this, you've got the cow horn that's out here growing this long. Supposedly this Big Texas thing gets like a beefsteak tomato, but only gets about that long. So it's like this, I don't know, like a little squash almost in the size that it gets. Unfortunately, none of those came up, so I can't say how it really grew. And I also got some seeds from Go for Green Living, and I want to say those were Star of David or something to that effect. And I had the same problem with that. I didn't get germination on them, and so I don't know how those would have turned out. So that's, I think, a complete list of what I have tried. I had a really big interest in that Star of David because my understanding was they stayed nice and small. So I might have to look into that one again in the near future. Let's see. What other questions? Go ahead. If you've typed a question and I missed it, paste it back down into the comments again. Will I do pigs again? I won't rule it out, but if we do pigs again, I am going to spend a lot of time and effort in creating a pen for them that I feel like a mouse can't get out of. I think maybe if a mouse could not get out, potentially a pig could not if you put a T-post every 3 inches so that it also couldn't just push its way out. And then maybe if you, on the top of the pen, put about a 3-inch thick sheet of lead, the pig wouldn't learn to fly and also get out. Now obviously I say half of that with a good amount of jest. I'll just let you figure out which half of it. Let's see. All right. I clearly it's a bad idea to try to scroll up and find comments. I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. So, we got another question here. Where are we? Where are you? If every place, go to facebook.com/JNJacres, go to jnjacres.net, go look at the details behind these videos on where they're located. Every single thing points to my exact location. You could find me a lot easier than a needle in a haystack, so you can find me up that way. Moderators, are there any questions out there? Anything that I've been missing that you can draw my attention to? Any particular topics anybody is interested in going to? Oh, I forgot to light my candle here. Let me fix that. There we go. There. Now the setting is in place. All right. Claudia is asking about goats. We don't have goats anymore. The two goats that we had, we specifically bought from a lady down the street just so we could get them into milk. She ended up getting a brand new boar for her property, and we used that same brand new boar to mate with the two females we had bought. When the first goat gave birth, we found out she had mastitis, likely contracted before she gave birth. That was a painful series of events that led to her losing one of her teats. It also led to her kid passing away. We did not know that she was not feeding him. We had seen him suckle once and thought we were good to go. But he ended up passing away, and then a couple weeks later, the second goat gave birth. Then it turned into a "this is my child, no, it's my child," and we just couldn't find King Solomon there to fix the issue, and so the goats kept fighting over this one goat. And we ended up finding another family farm in the area that was interested and wanted to get some goats, so we were able to just enrich their lives and let them take the goats off of our hands and let them get into raising goats. So currently there are no goats on the homestead either. Let's see. I feel like I'm not talking enough. Last week I kept talking and talking and talking, and now there's 124 of you actively watching, and I'm trying to find things to say. Jennifer, you said people wanted to talk about flowers for the bees. Well, I think if you're in an area like I am, out in the country, the nearest city to me is over 12 miles away to get to the city line. That chances are, if you just want to have a backyard hive, just one hive that makes a gallon of honey, max. If you're not trying to do a commercial production, let me put it that way instead. If you just want to have honey for your homestead and have one hive, and you live in a rural environment, then you don't have to worry about planting things for the bees. The bees are going to go off in a 2-mile radius and look anywhere around that they can to find flowers. So in our area, we have a lot of natives, everything from the tulip poplar tree real early in the spring to the goldenrod way late in the fall, that are constantly blooming and providing nectar and pollen for the bees. Now, if you specifically want to plant flowers for the bees, then really the best thing you can do is Google it. And I know that's a pawn off, but the reason is you can find resources where you can say, I live in this state, and get a chart that says this tree, this plant, this vegetable crop, this whatever is in bloom or in nectar in January, in February, in March. And you can sit there and really think about, when is the weak time for the bees? When's the time where there's less flow, and what can you do to help that out? So I would point you in that direction, with the caveat that, yeah, sure, I've gone to the store and seen a packet of seeds of wildflowers that are there for pollinators, and I've purchased those and I've planted those. So you can do that, but realize that honeybees are little money grubbers. They don't care about whether or not there's a penny on the floor in the parking lot. They care about the bank across the street. And if they can go rob the bank, they don't care about the penny that you dropped on the floor. So think about that when you're thinking about designing your property for pollinators. Sure, I have seen a few bees on the flowers that I have put. But a few bees doesn't amount to the 40 or 60,000 that are inside of each one of those hives. So they're out there robbing the bank somewhere else. And what I have for my pretty landscape flowers is just there as an extra resource, a bit of variety, and maybe so I can see a couple right up close while they're gathering nectar and things like that. So that's my 2 cents. If you can keep it natural, keep it natural. If you're inside of a urban environment, if you're inside of a city, you could possibly plant enough stuff for the bees. They're going to go out and searching. The best thing you can do is encourage the city to put a park nearby or something to that effect, because just nothing you could grow in a city lot is going to provide enough forage for an entire colony of bees. That's not how it works. So that's my 2 cents on that, I suppose. Let's see. Traditional staple crops in Mississippi. Oh, mercy. I don't know. I'm not a commercial farmer. I have no idea what the traditional staple crops are here. I could tell you, if you went down to the farmer's market, you're going to find sweet corn, you're going to find sweet potatoes and yams. You're going to find a whole lot of tomatoes. You're going to find some strawberries, some fruits like peaches, tree fruits, I should say. There's a lot of things that don't grow very well here because of the humidity, which invites a lot of disease and pests onto plants. So you're going to find the things that are more robust. Things like the corn, things like the sweet potatoes that are underground, and those kind of things. I am not near the delta, where supposedly the best fertile soil is for growing in Mississippi, so I couldn't possibly tell you what the staple crops are, and whether or not they would be considered a cash crop. Y'all are above my pay grade. That ain't what I'm about. It's over my head, and if you want to learn about that information, if you're in Mississippi, I would tell you to go look up the Mississippi Sustainable Agriculture Network and talk to Dan over there. Daniel's the guy who knows all about what farms in the area are growing and how well they're doing on it, and price points and all those kind of stuff. He's much more of the business savvy side of things. I'm about teaching my kids how to play in the dirt and grow some food to take care of themselves if they need to, and bringing the family kind of stuff like that. So, Grandpa's farm, you ask how long have we been homesteading? We have lived on this property for 7 years. I'm confident somewhere I have a video where I went through the trouble of detailing all of the funny things about this process, but let me try to see how concise I can be. We had chickens on the property before we had a driveway. I think that's probably, and that has been the problem ever since. We have constantly had the cart in front of the horse. And I think that that's probably a lesson learned that so many other homesteaders have shared, and yet is a problem so many homesteaders don't heed. They don't listen to the fact that that's a problem, and they jump straight into it. I think that I would have enjoyed our experiment with pigs a whole lot more if I had had a better pen set up for them, if I had taken the time to train them to hot wire like I was told to do, and those kind of things, than if I just said, hey, let's get some pigs, and got some pigs. So since that time, we've tried everything from the commercial leghorn kind of chickens to the more common backyard chickens like the Buff Orpingtons. We've tried the Muscovy ducks. We had a couple geese that were given to us. We've had goats on 3 different occasions. We have had rabbits, and I'm sure I'm missing something else. And of course, plenty of different kinds of gardens. So we've tried a bunch of different things in 7 years. It was probably right when we first started doing YouTube back in 2012 12, 13. I'd have to go check. 3 or 4 years, I think. Four almost. Almost full 3 years. Anyway, when we really started actually trying to homestead, where we said to ourselves, we've got to find a better way to be more sustainable and to be able to provide more for our own. On two different worlds. In the prepper world of being able to say, if we can't go to the grocery store, how do we feed ourselves? And on the homesteader world of being able to say, I don't want to have to go punch a clock every day for the rest of my life just to feed my family and myself. What if I could feed myself because of the labor and efforts I do at my home? And so with both of those concepts kind of pushing on us, we move forward, and we just keep moving forward. So Jennifer, let's see, I think you put a question up here a minute ago. It is very hard watching the chat. Mercy me. Thank you, Tommy, for pointing that out. Let's see. What was... If an administrator can put out there what the question was, what was the favorite thing about your homestead? I'm not sure. That was from Cockeyed Homestead. What is your favorite thing about your homestead? Well, my favorite thing is also usually the most challenging thing, and this is just where we have to be honest with everybody. I enjoy being with my children. I enjoy when they're out there in the garden and they get that look of wonder on their face. There is if you look back, if you searched for, maybe one of the admins can find this, I'm not sure. That's an ask for a live, go find a URL. But there is a video of ours called Final Harvest, and it was a late winter harvest that we did out in the garden. And you can watch as our littlest child, Leah, pulls out a carrot out of the ground. And she goes from having this bit of green leafy top to this big old root that she pulls out. And the look on her face of, holy cow, that's what was down there, is priceless. I mean, you can't pay somebody for the kind of joy that child experienced right that second. And when the child experiences the joy, I experience the joy. And the amount of learning that takes place with that. I mean, you understand, all 5 of our children are homeschooled 99.9% by Jennifer. She takes care of all the teaching them to read and teaching them to do their arithmetic and all those kind of things. And Daddy plays out in the garden and talks to them about dirt and how seeds grow. So mine is a lot less of a structured environment when I'm out sort of teaching the science and biology of things. But I love that. I love the look on the kids' face when they see the fruits of their labor, where they sit there and they help work the ground, they help put in the seeds, and the flower comes up, or the fruit comes, and we get to have it for dinner. I've told this story on several podcasts where I've been a guest at conferences and everything else, but I will say it again. Our kids will eat anything when we tell them it came from the farm. If we sit there and here's for an example. Right now in the freezer we have bags and bags of frozen peas. Planted tons of English peas earlier in the year. And if I were to go and put peas on the dinner plate tomorrow and tell them it came out of a can, I bet you 2 or 3 of the kids are going to try to ignore those peas. But if I say, hey guys, these are peas out of our garden, you're not going to find one left on the plate. There's a sense of ownership about that. I don't know if it's pride knowing that it came from the garden, if it's a taste thing because they feel like they are getting a better quality product from eating it out of the garden, but there's something about it, and they enjoy it. And that goes everything from peas to rabbit. I mean, everything in there. Duck, rabbit, whatever. When they know it's off the farm, it means the world to them. So I say that's my favorite thing, and it's also the most challenging thing because I don't want to blow smoke and make it sound like it's all roses. there's certainly plenty of times where it's frustrating. The child doesn't want to do a chore, and every other thing anybody else who's ever raised children have ever had to struggle with. We struggle with the same things. But the thing I enjoy the most is that look in their eyes. Hey, we did something. And it doesn't even have to be the eating part. It can be the completion of a project. Our oldest son, Brandon, if he gets out there and gets to help pound a hammer, gets to ride the tractor, gets to whatever else, all those kind of, I think people dare call them chores, but all those things of actually living life, just seeing how much pleasure he gets out of that is really exciting. And I get to sit back and do my best Tom Sawyer routine and tell him what fun it is to whitewash the fence and then watch him mow my yard. It's excellent. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. Do I have more than one channel? I do, but this is the one that gets updated, so just stay here. Let's see. Alright, I'm sure I missed a ton of questions. Did my parents homestead? No. I remember my mother having a small kitchen garden and a wild blackberry patch when I was in 4th to 6th grade, when we lived in a house where I was in 4th to 6th grade kind of time frame, and never after that. Part of that would be due to her health. She was never in the best of health. And my father had no desire to do those kind of things. He'd rather earn his money doing what he got pleasure doing and spend that money to buy the food. He didn't have any joy working out in a garden like I do. So it's just the fact of the matter. So no, my parents didn't do any of this kind of stuff. Let's see. What preserving methods do you use for your vegetables? And I see my time is about up. So if anybody can verify whether or not Homestead on I cannot say the name of that channel, Homestead Onomics, I'm never going to get that right, my apologies. If anybody can verify whether or not he can't make it, let me know, and I can go for a few more minutes for what we missed. But if another channel's coming on, I will shut up here shortly. So to answer the question, favorite preserving methods, right now I only have 2. We do not own a proper canner. The canner we have is not suitable for canning. I do have a very good dehydrator. I've got one of those Excaliburs, and I enjoy dehydrating certain things for preserving. But right now, most of our vegetables, those that can, get blanched and frozen and packed away. So that's really how we're doing it right now. But I would like to be able to expand on what we are preserving, and those things that can be canned, either in a water bath or in a pressure canner, I'd like to try to get into that next season. So hopefully we'll be able to up our preserving game in the future. Okay. All right, I got a he is on and things like that. So, folks, it's my time to bow out. I want to apologize if I did not get to your question. I'm sure that if we didn't have all the technological problems at the fore end of this thing, that maybe we could have got to a few more. So, we will be back here as part of the Homestead Network. You can go to thehomesteadnetwork.com to get a full list of all the shows and everything that's going on. If you'd like to support our homestead, head over to patreon.com/JNJAcres. We got a brand new Patreon account over there, and that's the only commercial I'll try to show you tonight. So thank you all so much for watching. We'll be right back here, same time, same channel, next week. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.